Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Le Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Le Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Iran and its regional allies vow retaliation for the death of Hamas leader, raising regional tensions as Ismail Haniyeh is buried in Doha, where he was living in exile. U.S. President Joe Biden greets former Marine Paul Whelan, journalists Evan Gershkovich and Alsu Permasheva as they arrive in America after being freed by Russia in a prisoner swap. The U.S. recognizes Venezuelan opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez as the election winner, discrediting results announced by the government-controlled electoral body that declared Maduro victorious. At least 11 people killed in a fire in a 5-story residential and commercial building in Chinatown precinct of the Philippine capital, Manila. And Turkey blocks access to Instagram without citing reasons. This follows censorship accusations against the US-based company by a high-ranking Turkish official. Hello and welcome. Our top focus remains in Nigeria, where protests against economic hardships have turned deadly. At least 13 people have been killed in the rallies across the West African nation, as per rights groups, with fears of the death toll mounting further. As per reports, many deaths took place in the Kaduna state, as thousands across Nigeria marched against the rising cost of living. Nigerian security forces fired live ammunition and tear gas to break protests in major cities. Some Nigerian media outlets have reported that the death toll is feared to be higher at around 17, and that people have lost lives in major cities like the capital of Abuja and Kano. In Kano, the country's second largest city, protesters set fire to tires outside the state governor's office, and police responded with tear gas, forcing most of the demonstrators back. Protesters later ransacked and set a digital center of the Nigeria Communications Commission ablaze. They also raided a warehouse near the Kano governor's office, while police fired shots into the air to disperse the looters. A 24-hour curfew was later imposed in the city. Hundreds of protesters also demonstrated in Abuja, the commercial capital, Lagos, and several other cities. People chanted slogans against President Bola Tinubu, calling him a thief. Now, the mass demonstrations comprise mainly of young people demanding an end to poor governance in Nigeria. Inspired by similar rallies in Kenya, they mobilized the protest on social media, using the hashtag #EndBadGovernance in Nigeria.
You cannot move from point A to point B in this country today without not necessarily breaking your neck. The cost of transport had gone up. You cannot begin to nurse the idea of sending your words to the school in this country right now without not even have to think 100 times.
Nigerian officials had warned against attempts to replicate the violent demonstrations in Kenya, where at least 50 people were killed. While the protest anxiety prompted the Nigerian government led by President Bola Tinubu to offer multiple concessions ahead of the rallies. Nigerian lawmakers have passed a bill to double the minimum wage, and the state oil firm announced new jobs for the first time in a decade. Despite this, angry youth turned up in huge numbers. Security officials say the protests have been hijacked by criminals and insurgents.
The IMN members have hijacked this, they are part of this protest, and that is what we have noticed. That is why we are drawing the attention of the public, since that some bad elements are trying to hijack this protest.
Earlier, President Tinubu had warned that the protests would lead to anarchy and said the military would intervene to avert a crisis. Protesters have vowed their rallies will continue in the coming days. Africa's most populous country is struggling with soaring inflation of over 34% and a sharply devalued naira. The prices spiked after President Tinubu ended a costly fuel subsidy and liberalized the currency more than a year ago. Many protesters say they are battling hunger and poverty due to the price rise.
Nothing is actually working in Nigeria anymore. Even as an health worker, I can't fend for my family very well. I can't provide most of the basic needs of my family. Not because I am not hardworking, but because the economy is so bad that money has no value again. When we go to the market, you spend the whole of your salary and even borrow more. So nothing is working.
Will Nigeria be able to contain the violence, or will it head into chaos? Now, for more on this, we have with us Ambrose Igboke, a PhD and global affairs analyst, joining us live from Enugu in Nigeria. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Alyson.
Yeah. At least 13 people have been killed in the demonstrations across Nigeria. What are the latest details that you have for us?
Today has been more peaceful than yesterday. Yesterday there was a clash between overzealous security agencies and also overzealous protesters. The preparations towards the protest has been that of heated arguments. It has that of threats from government officials. It has been that of threats also from some security agencies. But also some other government officials also have some reconciliatory approach to it, some engaged. The problem has been that instead of telling people not to come out, the government would have prepared in a different way for the protests. I did recommend some days ago that what would have been better would have been the government to engage with these people. Instead of telling them not to come out, you can reach an agreement, say, okay, let's prevent the issues of the protests being hijacked or infiltrated by hoodlums or by fifth columnists who are, rioters rather than protesters, like what we saw happen in Kano. What the government would have done was to provide places. For example, the FCT minister came out to say that the popular Eagle Square in Abuja, that is home to protests all over the years, will be shot against the protesters. That was a wrong move. Some things like that would have opened up the Eagle Square for them and then provide the adequate security so that that would have contained them in a place. But where it seems we have not been able to learn how to manage protests over time.
Right. Ambrose, on that, the Nigerian troops and police have tightened security in major cities in response to the protests. This, of course, reflects the heightened tensions. What are the security forces doing to ensure the protests remain peaceful?
There are a lot of intelligence gathering going on, which we are aware of. And also, there have been also a lot of engagements. For example, one of the states in Nigeria, Edo State, and in some other states, we saw the police commissioners there, talking to the protesters, and they were having some engagements. The same thing, like the chief of defense staff just some few minutes ago, that's 15 minutes ago, and a press conference with the media where he briefed the media that the military is on standby in case the situation gets out of hand. We don't pray that it gets to that point, but he just had a briefing with the media community. Also, a lot of states, like in Bayelsa State yesterday, the governor had a deal with the protesters that, okay, you're allowed to protest, we'll give you the cover and the security. Meanwhile, your right to protest should not infringe on the right of freedom of movement of other citizens. So therefore, workers went to work in Bayelsa State and other states yesterday. Protests took place and it was peaceful. So I think it was the approaches by the different states and different claims that caused the clashes. What happened in Kano, Maiduguri, and some other places were infiltration from people, from hoodlums who caused riots, who focused on looting, rioting instead of having protest. I think it's a failure of intelligence and it's a failure of security for that not to be nipped in the bud.
Now, the hashtag End Bad Governance in Nigeria movement seeks an end to police brutality, improved human rights, and stable economic policies. What are the reasons that have pushed Nigerians to protest?
I think what you mentioned earlier, the first you mentioned in terms of police brutality, was what did the last protest, which was called the EndSARS protest that happened in 2020. This one was focused more on the economic issues and the issues of governance, the issue of hyperinflation, the issue of insecurity, the issue of hunger, and then the issue of there are not even pragmatic templates to even call this thing. Because the government on their side, I would say, oh, be patient with us. We are just putting things in place to make sure that we get these things sorted out. But many Nigerians are not even seeing the pragmatic templates towards this. So it's out of hopelessness. A lot of people cannot get job. Unemployment rate is very, very high. So a lot of people are dying every day because they couldn't afford basic medicine. So it is a very dire situation, and that is what is being protested against. So in the backdrop of this going forward, I think the government should be able to now sit down and be able to, leave this paradigm, make a paradigm shift outside the things they have been doing. It's not enough to say you are sending 10 trucks of rice or grain to a full state and say that will solve the problem. So this slapstick method of problem solving should stop. There should be more focused and agendaed economic policies that will make sure that we have reprieve in the immediate and then have some plans for the midterm.
Right. And Ambrose, the concessions that Bola Tinubu has already made have not really done much to quell the anger in the nation. What are the protesters demanding, and what options are available to the Nigerian government now?
The concessions are more cosmetic, that they don't address the root cause of the problem. The root cause of this problem is the hyperinflation, which was ushered in by the removal of fuel subsidy that was done in May 29, 2023, which was last year. And the increment in fuel from 165 to 240. By July, it increased to 600, July of last year. And this also followed by the floating of the naira. And these things were done without adequate measures of safeguards. And that was the problem. There were no cushioning effects set aside for this. And so these are the things. So it's not what government has offered by increasing the labor salary. How many Nigerians are in the workforce of the government? Because most of these increments only affect government parastatals and the big blue chip companies. Most of the SMEs cannot pay those. So the cost of living is the main thing, that the cost of living should come down. And whatever you do, be it borrowing money from the World Bank to pay to give 50,000 to poor families, or sending buying CNG buses to alleviate transportation, or to send trucks loads of grains to states, they are just cosmetic solutions. Nigerians need more solutions. For example, how does the price of petrol come down? That's what Nigerians want. How do food prices come down? How does electricity tariff come down? So these are the things the government should be looking at and stop these cosmetic approaches they are using.
Yeah. Ambrose, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa.
Thank you, Alyson, for having me on the show.
Moving on to Zimbabwe in southern Africa, where a crackdown on opposition is widening further. The Zimbabwe police have arrested 18 activists who took part in demonstrations for the release of the main opposition leader, Jameson Timber. The arrest came as the government warned of a crackdown on protests ahead of a regional summit. Zimbabwe is preparing to host the Southern African Development Community Summit on the 17th of August. At least 4 of the 18 activists were hauled off on a plane, and others were arrested in the small northwestern town of Kariba. As per a pro-democracy foundation, they were held without any communication and tortured for several hours before being handed over to the police. The police have charged the activists under public disorder laws after taking part in protests demanding the release of opposition leader from detention. Now, Jameson Timber is the interim head of the opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, or the CCC. He assumed the role after Zimbabwe's opposition leader Nelson Chamisa quit the coalition in January this year. Chamisa, while quitting, said his party has been contaminated and hijacked by the government. Timber was arrested at his home on the 16th of June, along with 70 other people. They were accused of participating in an unlawful gathering. The police said that Timber's supporters pelted stones at officers and that the meeting organized was an unauthorized one. Those arrested also included Timber's son. The ZANU-PF party has been in power since Zimbabwe's independence in 1980, and President Emmerson Mnangagwa has been at the helm since 2017. In the August 2023 elections, President Emmerson Mnangagwa won a second term with 52.6% of the votes, while the CCC leader, Nelson Chamisa, won 44%. The opposition condemned the outcome as flawed and demanded a fresh vote. Concerns were also raised by other regional and international observers, such as South Africa and the United States, saying it fell short of the requirements of the country's constitution and regional guidelines. Human rights activists have accused ZANU-PF of using various tactics to stay in power, including violence and intimidation. The party, however, has denied the allegations. Moving on to South Africa now, the Miss South Africa competition has currently become a center of debate on national identity and xenophobia. The controversy surrounds Chidimma Adetshina, a 2024 Miss South Africa pageant finalist. The 23-year-old, born in Soweto, is facing scrutiny and backlash over her identity, with questions on her eligibility to be a part of the competition. Adetshina was born to a Nigerian father and a mother of Mozambican descent. While she is in the top 11 of the race for the pageant title, the criticism has become more intense as she moves closer to the crown. For days now, users on social media have been questioning her bloodline, subjecting her to hate and abuse, and many are calling it a matter of national importance. The debate intensified after a video of Adetshina surfaced showing her celebrating her success with her Nigerian relatives. This further fueled the argument by many that she was not South African enough. Her nationality has become a hot topic among politicians and media figures, and even on TV news and radio talk shows. Even South Africa's Minister of Arts, Sport and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, jumped into the debate. He said it would be a travesty for the country to be represented globally by someone who identifies more with Nigeria than South Africa. Action SA leader Herman Mashaba also joined the debate, criticizing Adetshina's participation. EFF leader Julius Malema backed Adetshina while speaking on a podcast. Dismissing the criticism, he said citizenship is determined by place of birth and that Adetshina was South African. Adetshina expressed her frustration at the backlash. She, along with her supporters, countered the criticism with accusations of xenophobia. Her supporters view her as a symbol of the country's identity. Despite the backlash, Adetshina states that she remains determined to succeed. The Miss South Africa organization has also stood by her, stating that citizenship, regardless of origin, is the primary requirement. Born in Soweto, Adetshina is a South African citizen. It is not the first time the Miss South Africa organization has faced such scrutiny over the heritage of a contestant. In 2001, Vanessa Catrulis, born to Portuguese Angolan parents, won the Miss South Africa crown. In early 2024, Sherry Wang's participation in the competition sparked debate due to her Chinese heritage. The Miss South Africa 2024 competition is set for the 10th of August in Pretoria. The winner will represent South Africa at the Miss Universe 2024 pageant in Mexico. Now, Chidimma Adetshina may or may not win the title, but her participation has certainly shed light on South Africa's deep-seated history of xenophobia, particularly towards African immigrants. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. Today, we bring you the story of Mary Moraa, the 800-meter world champion from Kenya. She is affectionately known as the country's dancing queen. Moraa is eyeing redemption, this time at the Paris Olympics. Our final report tells you about her journey from the early days in Kisii to her pursuit of Olympic glory.
Paris is at the center of global attention. It's currently hosting the ultimate sporting spectacle, the Olympics. The event is not just about athletic prowess, but it also sheds light on untold stories. Stories of those who fall through the cracks. Meet Mary Moraa, the reigning 800-meter world champion. She's in Paris right now, chasing a medal at the Olympics. Moraa is representing Kenya in track and field events, the women's 800-meter race. Her charisma on the tracks has earned her a special title. She is called Kenya's dancing queen. When she clinched the world title in Hungary last August, she broke into a little victory dance the moment she leapt over the finish line. It was that trademark move which gave birth to this title. Her spirited celebration became a memorable moment for fans. But behind those spirited moments lurks a journey of determination and resilience. That cheerful demeanor on court conceals her hidden struggles off it. Her rise to stardom was a dance of its own. She grew up in a place called Kisii. It's in western Kenya. When she was 2, both her parents passed away. Moraa never even knew what her mother looked like. She had no photo of her, no memories, no tangible trace of the person who brought her into this world. All Moraa had was stories others told her. She learnt of her mother only through their words, and through these stories, she discovered that her mother was a runner too.
I heard in the village, people were saying my mother was running, but there was no support. So when I heard people saying that, I was like, I want to learn like my mom.
Inspired by this revelation, Moraa pursued a career in running. It struck her that it was through running she could carry her mother's unseen legacy. As a young girl, Moraa ran 6 kilometers to school each day. The grueling commute was the perfect training ground. It honed her skills, and it acted as the perfect track where she could prepare for her future victories. Her exceptional running even earned her an educational scholarship. But she still had to work on farms to support her family. Moraa would often be told that she runs like her mother. And when she heard those words, every sprint she took was a way to honor her memory. Adding to this fire was someone named Helen Obiri. Moraa had seen the incredible impact of running through the achievements of Obiri, who happens to be a double Olympic 5,000-meter silver medalist from the same village of Kisii. That's how Moraa found someone she wanted to emulate. Today, she is thankful to Obiri. Obiri's influence was personal, as she not only mentored Moraa, but also brought her the first running shoes she ever ran with professionally. Today, she stands at the pinnacle of sporting excellence. Moraa's journey from running to school as a young girl to now becoming an Olympic athlete is a testament to her dedication. Despite her remarkable achievements, Moraa remains conscious about predicting her performance at Paris. Her ambition is to solidify her place among the sports elite, but she acknowledges the unpredictability of the event. Mora's main focus is to get a podium finish, not strike a gold. As she sets her sight on a medal at the Paris Games, she remains grounded and aware of the challenges ahead. That's because her journey up to this point has been full of obstacles. Some of those obstacles broke her spirit, while some mended it, like during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, when Moraa was eliminated in the semi-finals, or in 2019, where an early crash left her finishing well outside the top 10. Moraa knows that while she strives for victory, losing remains a possibility. This awareness doesn't weaken her resolve. Instead, the approach keeps her cautious. She understands that every victory or setback is part of her path to getting to shake a leg at the end of races.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time on Monday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and goodbye.